Alright, so we're going to take a closer look at going from standard form of a quadratic equation to vertex form. And part of this is doing what we call completing the square. So we're going to look at a very basic one of x squared plus 8x minus 10. And then we'll look at a more in-depth one of, let's say, negative 3x squared plus 9x. No, let's make that 12x plus 8. Alright, so I'm going to start over here on the left side with x squared plus 8x minus 10. So this does have an a value of 1, but when I pull 1 out, it doesn't really change anything in my first two terms. So that would still just be x squared plus 8x plus blank minus 10 minus blank. Now remember, these blanks, I'm adding a value into my equation, so I have to offset that by subtracting that value out. That's why they're there. So I have to figure out what will complete the square here. What will give me x plus or minus something squared from x squared plus 8x plus blank. So I'm going to break up. My x squared is right there, so I know that's x and x. My 8x divided evenly would give me a 4x and a 4x. So I know I'm dealing with x plus 4 squared now. Well, then I can just finish out the square, because 4 times 4 is 16, so that tells me I need a 16 in this blank to equal x plus 4 squared. Now, I added a value of 16 into my equation that wasn't originally there, so to keep everything balanced, I have to subtract that 16 out here. So to just clean up my equation here, I bring down my a value, 1. X squared plus 8x plus 16 is the exact same thing as x plus 4 squared, so that's all taken care of. And then negative 10 minus 16 is negative 26. Now, I'm in vertex form. My a value is a positive number, so that tells me it's opening up. So I'd have a minimum here, and that minimum would be at my h and k values of negative 4, negative 26 for a vertex. All right, now we're going to look at an a value that's not 1 to see how that affects completing the square. So I'm actually going to do this in a little bit different color just so things don't get confused. So again, I always start with looking at my a value, pulling that out of the first two terms. So negative 3. Negative 3x squared divided by negative 3 is just x squared. 12x divided by negative 3 is negative 4x plus blank. I'm going to bring down my plus 8 and prepare to minus something to balance out my equation. Now, if I break down this into my box like I did before, dividing that negative 4 out evenly, I get negative 2x and negative 2x, which tells me I'm dealing with x minus 2 squared. So to finish that out, negative 2 times negative 2 is a 4, but I'm going to take a second to look at, I didn't add a 4 into my equation. I added a value of negative 3 times 4. So negative 3 times 4 tells me I added a value of negative 12 to my equation. To offset this negative 12, I need to add 12 on the outside just to keep my equation balanced. Now to go in the cleanup step, I bring down my a value, that's negative 3. The x squared minus 4x plus 4 is the exact same thing as x minus 2 squared. And then my 8 and 12 combine to give me a positive 20. So now, if I'm looking at that, my a value is a negative 3. So it tells me I'm going to open down. It's going to be a little bit more narrow. And I'll have a maximum at 2 because of my h value and 20. All right, hope this helps a little bit.